Hey everyone, Brian Zane here with the AEW Dynamite review for June 1st, 2022. Apologies for getting this one out a little later than normal. Had a big prior commitment in the evening on Wednesday. So I watched the show last night, reviewing it here Thursday morning for your viewing pleasure. We have a lot to talk about because this is the first show after Double or Nothing, and a lot happened on Wednesday. So let's begin. The show begins with the trios match as the new AEW champion CM Punk and the ROH tag champs FTR take on Max Caster and Austin and Colton Gunn. Caster in his pre-match rap referencing at least the Amber Heard verdict. You know, he loves to rip things straight from the headlines. Anthony Bowens, who is hurt, he's in a wheelchair, gets the Ass Boys chant going, which Austin and Colton still don't appreciate. The match begins and Dax spends most of the match as the one taking the heat in this one, even taking a punch from Billy Gunn on the outside when the referee is distracted before break. Caster at one point trying to put a sharpshooter on, which gets stopped because on Double or Nothing we saw enough bad sharpshooters. Don't need to see that trend continue here on Dynamite. CM Punk gets in, he's a house of fire, he hits the big elbow drop. He awkwardly powerbombs Austin Gunn into Billy, who's like on the apron. Punk just brings Austin down into the ropes, and Billy just kind of like sells for it and powders out, which, I don't know, that part looked kind of weird. But besides that, you've got the GTS and the big rig on Austin for Punk and FTR to win. Nice opening match, but not amazing. It's just the idea of seeing Punk and FTR in a trios match together on paper alone is pretty cool. The match itself was okay. Punk takes the mic after the bell. He and Dax both kind of just talk about the roles they've both been on, and Dax talks about how he fights, everything he does is for his wife and his kid who are in the arena, and Punk brings up, hey, Forbidden Door's coming up, so who's in the back, who's going to challenge me? It's Hiroshi Tanahashi, the ace of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and one of the most popular stars in that organization. He comes out, he's issued the challenge, and looks like that's the match we're going to be having on June 26th, Forbidden Door. That's going to be a great matchup, whether or not it's for the championship. Tanahashi seemed to indicate as much. He did the belt thing. He did that, so I don't know if it's going to be for the AEW title, but whether it's for a championship or just an exhibition, New Japan versus AEW, I think that's got a great match written all over it. Now it's time for what most people are talking about from this week's episode. MJF speaks after he was squashed into oblivion at Double or Nothing, and his whole presence there was fairly controversial as to the status of, is he on the outs? Is it a work? Is it a shoot? Whatever. I talked about it a little more in depth in my Double or Nothing review. He shows up here and he's got a lot to say. He's speaking as Max Friedman, as opposed to Maxwell Jacob Friedman, I guess. But it's very shooty shoot here. It's one of those shoot work promos, or a woot, as someone might call it. You know, he's talking toward Tony Khan, directing his ire toward him. He says that MJF has created moment after moment after moment. When he first got here, it was all friends wrestling, and he had to write his own ticket just to get a chance, and he's been hitting grand slams on a weekly basis, etc. He turns on the crowd a little bit because the crowd's cheering what he's saying. It's like, oh, where were all of you when you were calling me an unprofessional piece of shit over the weekend? And he tells the guys in the back, they're gunning for me too. They can have my spot because I don't want to be here anymore. He calls the fans uneducated marks, and he says, you know, people boo him and think he's a bad wrestler because, oh, he's not one of the untrained favorites that are out there. He doesn't dump people on their heads. He doesn't chase star ratings like all the other wrestlers do. You know, he says he's the only person who makes people feel anything. He doesn't have to do any crazy bullshit to get people there, which I thought was a very interesting line. He calls himself the second biggest minute-by-minute draw in AEW, which is a very specific stat, but he says that's him, and you can ask the stat boy, Tony Khan, to confirm that sort of thing. He says that Tony is hoarding all his money. He won't pay the man, but he's hoarding all his money for ex-WWE guys, which gets a big audible, like, oh shit sound from the audience, and he asks Tony, would you treat me better if I were an ex-WWE guy? And then he kind of does his fire me, I'm already fired moment, because he tells Tony Khan to fire him, and he says, you fucking Mark, fire me, you piece of shit, and everything, yelling and screaming into the microphone. And finally the mic's cut off, and there is a moment after the commercial break where CM Punk comes in to like try to confront him, and MJF runs away, but we're not really talking about that. It's, you know, that whole promo itself, that was insane. That was just something you didn't really expect to hear. That was MJF's, I guess, his equivalent of the pipe bomb, as it were. It was a big, you know, like I said, the whole work shoot aspect of it. He wouldn't have said that stuff if it wasn't approved by Tony Khan. So the question of, is it a work? Is it a shoot? Has it been a work all along? Did it start out as a shoot and then they said, hey, let's make some money with this and turn this into an angle, make it a work? You know, that's never been clarified here, but the fact that MJF cut this promo out here seems to me that it is firmly in work territory now. And I think that this was, and if it was a work all along, consider me worked. I think that was very convincing, the work they did to get that message, to get that perception across. It was very good. It's not every day that, people get so caught up in that sort of debate. And I think it's good because it keeps kayfabe alive and it keeps the mystique alive in some way. My one nitpick about this, and this is barely, it's a minor thing. The point of a promo is to make money and to get people to buy tickets to the next thing, whether it's the next week's show or the pay-per-view or whatever. What exactly did this promo accomplish? It was great storytelling for one character, for MJF, but are we going to see a payoff with he and Tony Khan in the ring? I certainly hope not. What is this? What angle is this building toward exactly? Where's the money, so to speak? I'm not talking about the money that MJF says he is owed from Tony Khan. Like, where's the money feud? I saw R.D. Reynolds, friend of the show from WrestleCrap.com. He posted a theory where maybe it's leading to some kind of maybe AEW originals versus ex-WWE feud contingent thing. I don't know if that's the case, but I think that it's just a matter of where is this going? What is the end game of this? Because it's great to play off on the current events and play off on what the story is and the narrative is at the time, and to turn it on its ear and have this really angry promo that just feels so real and raw and authentic, and it was just so well done. I'm not dissing the promo itself. I think this is one of MJF's best moments on the mic, period. But again, my whole thing is, where's the money? Up next, Johnny Elite with his sweet-ass holographic belt makes an open challenge to anyone in the back, and it's Miro, the former TNT champion, makes his long-awaited return. Haven't seen him in an AEW ring since November. He shows up, he's got a pre-tape promo where he says he's back, he's going to redeem everyone in AEW, and then he comes out live for the match. It's a good back and forth here in this thing. Awkward moment near the end where Johnny does that big flipping off the top, and he kind of lands on Miro, who was supposed to dodge it. It wasn't a very clean dodge, but they cover it pretty well from that, and the rest of the match is okay. In the end, Miro wins decisively with game over, and that's that. And I'm glad to see Miro here. It's been a while since we've seen him. Like I said, the landscape in AEW, just in the 5 or so months he's been gone, 5 or 6 months, is totally different than when he was there. So I think just him being back right now opens himself up to a lot of different possibilities as to where he could go, who he could feud with. Could we see him back in the TNT title picture? Maybe once Scorpio drops the belt to a babyface, he could see himself back in that picture. Or maybe he could be a future contender for CM Punk down the line. There's a lot of different ways I think you could go with Miro, but I'm excited either way. Up next, the Jericho Appreciation Society addressed what happened at Anarchy in the Arena on Sunday. The group is there sans Daniel Garcia because he is getting ready for the main event match later on against Moxley. Matt Menard saying that they are the Princes of Pain. Jericho on the mic taking offense to when Kingston tried to burn him alive near the end of the match, saying, "What kind of man burns another man?" And the lack of awareness from Jericho saying that in that character, I think, is pretty brilliant. It's pretty entertaining. They talk about how Danielson wanted to, quote, kick his expletive head in, the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable, I think, but they did take him out, they say. Sports entertainers beat wrestlers every time, and then suddenly Eddie Kingston and William Regal both make their way to the stage. Kingston wants to fight all of them, hands the mic to William Regal, and he says the thing, blood and guts. Like, you know what? We can't say war games, we can say blood and guts, and that's exactly why Regal is there. Just have him come out there and announce the big bloody cage match, and that was perfect. So then, while that's going on, there's this big distraction here. Ortiz gets in the ring, takes down Jericho, and actually cuts a lock of his hair. I mean, gosh, what happened on Sunday, you saw he was already losing hair already. The man can't afford to lose anymore. But we see Jericho get very heated by this. He's incensed and says, okay, this match of blood and guts is on, but first, I want a hair versus hair match with Ortiz. And that match is going to happen in 2 weeks. And I thought that was a really fun segment. We got Regal saying the thing. We got some fun heat with Ortiz getting the jump on Jericho, setting up what could be a really entertaining gimmick match of hair versus hair. And that's crazy. The potential of Jericho losing his hair, I think, would be a drastic thing. But I mean, I think that's what everyone's kind of assuming is going to happen. But again, we'll see. It's 2 weeks from now. But yeah, very fun segment, I think, with Jericho Appreciation Society, and then the babyface is kind of getting one up on them afterward. There's a recap from Sunday night backstage where we see Samoa Joe get jumped by Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, and Satnam Singh. They take out his shoulders, so that storyline still very much in effect. On we go to a 10-man tag match now as the Young Bucks, Red Dragon, and Hikuleo take on the AEW Tag Champs, Jurassic Express, Christian Cage, Darby Allin, and Matt Hardy. Jeff Hardy was originally scheduled to be in this matchup instead of Darby, but they said he was too banged up to compete here. And yeah, if you saw how he performed on Sunday, that's pretty fairly obvious. It's a fun 10-man tag. There's like so much going on here, especially with the shenanigans, the Undisputed Elite. There's a lot going on here. Luchasaurus makes the hot tag near the end, and Adam Cole, who's on commentary during this, by the way, he goes into a conniption fit. Anytime like the heels don't look good, he lets you know it, that he's upset, and it's like, I do appreciate that commitment to character. Hikuleo is really sparsely used in this matchup. At one point he tags in and is in there for like 20 seconds before he tags back out. He's used a bit more near the finish of this one. Takes kind of a scary looking tumble on the outside, nearly spikes himself, but he is able to keep going. Matt Hardy gets a hot tag doing those turnbuckle spots, and he tries to do it on everyone, but Hikuleo is the only one who resists that attack. We've got the Meltzer driver on Jungle Boy for the Young Bucks to make the pin and get the win. So the Bucks have pinned one half of the AEW Tag Team Champions in this one here. I thought it was an entertaining 10-man tag. It was, that wild, frenetic Young Bucks style of match, which we've seen so much before, but it did the job here, and it's setting up something, it seems, for the Bucks versus the Tag Champs. They may have lost the Hardy Boys on Sunday, but that's in the past now. They beat the Tag Champs. That seems to give them maybe a right, or that entitles them to a tag title match some point in the future. There's a backstage interview with Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland. Swerve's got some friends whose names escaped me, and then there's also some guy named Jeff Hamilton who gives him a jacket. I'm sorry if I'm ignorant to these names and these people. I apologize. Swerve compares he and Keith to, superstar pairings in a team, in LA. So he references Shaq and Kobe, Jerry West and Will Chamberlain, Magic and Kareem. And then Keith Lee wraps it by saying they should all swerve in their glory. Then we go to the stage where Tony Schiavone wants to interview Athena, the newest addition to the AEW women's division. She specifically calls out Jade Cargill. She says she'll be the one to break Jade's streak. But then out comes Cargill and her new publicist, Stokely Hathaway. So it seems that Jade has traded Mark Sterling for Stokely Hathaway here. There's great stuff by Stoke here. I mean, I've talked before about how much I like his mic work. He is not disappointing here. He calls Jade a queen and a goddess, and the good stuff where they're playing off each other as well in this promo. We get a stare down when the baddies come in. They kind of stare down Athena. You have Chris Statlander and Anna Jay coming in to even the odds. Then it just kind of separates from there. I love this pairing already of Stokely Hathaway and Jade Cargill. I also like the dynamic of Sterling and Jade, but this is a different dynamic. And I think it's time for Jade's character to make that shift and evolve a little bit. I think she's gone about as far as she can with Mark Sterling in her corner. So I think swapping for Stokely Hathaway here, I think, is a trade up. I think Sterling doing stuff with Tony Nese right now works. And yeah, I think this is, I'm again, really optimistic and excited for this particular pairing. Up next, the newly emancipated Wardlow with his new theme music takes on J.D. Drake. It's a fairly short match here, and the just impressive visual of seeing Wardlow get the big man up for not one, but two power bombs to beat him handily, I thought was pretty cool to see. Schiavone wants to interview him after the bell, but then suddenly out comes smart Mark Sterling with a bunch of security guards, and basically he wants to throw a class action lawsuit at Wardlow, representing all the security guys he's beaten week after week. Hood Slam star Drugs Bunny serves the papers to Wardlow, and he takes a powerbomb for his efforts, and that's how the segment ends, more or less. So is this Wardlow's first post-MJF storyline? Wardlow versus the judicial system? If we can get some courtroom scenes and skits with a bunch of security guys like heavily cartoonishly bandaged up to offer testimony about how Wardlow beat them up, like, hey, I'm all for it. The Men of the Year and Dan Lambert interviewed backstage. Lambert saying he does not like Dante Martin, but he does recognize he's got great potential, and that if he applies himself in a few years, he could be as good as Scorpio Sky is right now. Scorpio saying all the potential will get him nowhere on Friday when he beats Dante to retain the TNT Championship. Goes to snap to black, but then Dante walks in and stops him and basically asserts that he'll be the one to beat Scorpio on Friday. We go now to women's tag action as Dr. Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter take on Toni Storm and Ruby Soho. So it's kind of a fallout from what happened in the last couple of women's tournament matches for the Owen Hart tournament. This is a good match here. Ruby takes a lot of the heat in this thing, hits the Saito suplex on Britt to get a hot tag between Jamie and Toni. Toni with a great tornado DDT in the ring, goes to another one outside, but Jamie Hayter plants her on the floor with one of her own. Ruby's able to hit Britt with the Destination Unknown to win the match. So kind of an interesting consolation prize here. She lost the tournament finals, but here she wins this kind of like follow-up match at the end. So obviously, I don't think you can really fight for the Owen Championship belt. That's over and done with. But if this is going to be Ruby's next feud, a continuation, I guess, of the thing with Britt Baker, like, let her win that one. Let her win a feud. If there's no stakes here, and if that, if Britt's always going to have the Owen Hart tournament to hang her hat on, she can afford to lose a feud, and if Ruby Soho can win this one, and like I was talking about this on Sunday, it's one thing to have a character lose all the time and say, man, I got to win the big one, but they eventually got to win a big one, because if they keep losing, then they're just going to be seen as losers. So Ruby Soho definitely needs at some point to be able to beat Britt or somebody and declare victory in a feud. Main event time as Jon Moxley takes on Daniel Garcia of the Jericho Appreciation Society. This match is aggressive and physical from the get-go. A lot of fun to watch. Moxley is bleeding before the commercial break, and by the end of the match, he is a bloody mess. Garcia working Moxley's leg for a lot of this time. At one point, he bites Moxley's forehead and like rubs the blood all over himself, which is great. You love to see more like intensity and character from folks like that. Garcia is one of those guys where he's still kind of like this untapped potential of character and kind of not fully molded yet. And I think this run of the Jericho Appreciation Society will hopefully get him to that next level. Moxley with that flipping suplex onto the steel steps, which was pretty gnarly. Garcia hits the big elbows into the shoulder and everything, but Moxley turns around, puts some of his own down there. More holds exchanged. Good catch work in this match for sure. Garcia hits the best sharpshooter we've seen all week between all the people who tried it, a double or nothing, from what Max Caster tried earlier tonight on Wednesday, and here, this is the best one by far. They fall to the timekeeper's table at one point, even as they're brawling. In the end, Jericho, who's doing commentary for this one, he's at ringside, and he's trying to distract Moxley and everything. Suddenly, Eddie Kingston jumps him from behind, beats him up as Moxley hits the paradigm shift and the Bulldog choke to beat Garcia and win the match. And Moxley says he's going to join Eddie Kingston's side at Blood and Guts in a few weeks in Detroit, and that's how the show ends. So I like that idea of Kingston kind of like one by one adding more people to his team. Like, it's kind of a given. They kind of gave away that Santana and Ortiz were going to be in the match, even though it's not been officially announced that they were yet. They kind of jumped the gun on that. But yeah, Moxley kind of like, later on joining it and kind of keeping that thread going. That was very good. And so, yeah, this was a great, end of the show. Very strong main event. Garcia is looking better every week. And against guys like Moxley, he can really shine. My grade for this week's episode of Dynamite is an A-. This has to be one of the strongest episodes of Dynamite we've seen all year. I mean, just moment after moment after moment is what we saw here. A couple of really good matches, but I think to me what always hooks me more is moments and promos and stuff. And like when it comes to promos, like I said, we got a real good one here with MJF. That was definitely a promo of the year, if not the promo of the year. Again, my one nitpick is, what is this building toward? Like, what is the payoff to this going to be? But I mean, it was great to see Tanahashi show up, Miro returning, Regal saying the thing. It was just a lot. It was a very fun show. And I mean, I was entertained. Those 2 hours flew by. Not really much I could say that was like, oh, I had no problems with this episode. So yeah, to me, it was a really strong show. But what did you think of Dynamite this week, folks? I want to hear it in the comments section below, especially your thoughts on the MJF promo, because that has certainly generated a ton of buzz since it happened last night. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.